Why is Hitler speaking English relevant to understanding the Nazis through the prism of status?
Hitler speaking English?
Yeah.
I don't know anything about Hitler speaking English.
Well, he didn't really speak English, but the AI model.
The AI thing. That was just something Joe Rogan showed me. I don't know why he showed me it.
I know, but he got a lot of views, so I'm asking you about it.
Yeah, and I changed the subject with him, and as I will do for you now. So yeah, one of the things that I wanted to do in the status game was, the argument in the status game is that status is a fundamental human need. It's not like a nice to have. We have to have it psychologically. It's a relentless pursuit by every human. They will find some way of feeling of value. So if that's true, that means we must see the results of this kind of status play everywhere in our personal lives, but also in the grand sweep of history. And so I devoted a chapter to the Nazis, and I devoted a chapter at the end to communism, because I think communism is a really interesting way of looking at this too. And what was fascinating about looking at the rise of the Nazis for me was that, when I was sort of being brought up, it was very much this story of Hitler was a monster, and he got power, and he kind of hypnotized all these Germans into being racists, and that's the story of the Nazis. And it doesn't actually make a lot of sense. Like, it doesn't feel like a true story to me.
No.
But that was the kind of folk story that we all believed. Which sort of always begged the question, and then every tin pot Nazi documentary you're ever going to see will have a version of this thing of, how could it be that this incredibly impressive, civilized, cultured nation fell to this level of depravity? And what I found when I was researching this through the kind of lens of status was that the fact that they were high culture, civilized, in other words, high status, was the reason that it happened. So it's not like, how could these people do this? It was like, well, they did this because they were up there. And so really, I think what the story is at the turn of the century, the Germans were the most successful nation in continental Europe. They were massively successful technologically. They had huge, they had the Google and Apple of their day, and companies like Siemens. They were, huge agriculturally. They were just like incredibly impressive. They were scientifically advanced, industrial advanced, rich, amazing. They were quite a narcissistic culture. Like, they knew they were good. And so then World War I happens, and they have this. They just assume, because we're Germany, we're going to kill it. We're going to ace it. We're going to win World War I. Of course, they didn't. There was this sudden surprise surrender. So that's humiliating. Yeah, so they've gone from high status to low status, and then there's the Treaty of Versailles, which is humiliation upon humiliation upon humiliation. They had to get rid of most of their kind of military. They had to pay billions of dollars in reparations. Their economy went to shit. So it was just they went from up there to right down there. And when you do that to an individual, they'll tend to have a nervous breakdown. They'll very often become suicidal. Like, that's what happens when you go from high status to low status very quickly. It's very likely you can become seriously mentally ill, and very likely, and very, very possibly suicidal. And so that's what happened on the level of the nation. Really, they went mad. Hitler came into power, and what's interesting is that when you look at all those incidents of Hitler madness, there's hundreds of thousands of people in the streets going completely crazy. Those are the times where Hitler was seen to somehow restore the honor and dignity of Germany by, taking back their industrial heartlands that they'd had to give away because they couldn't afford to pay the reparations, for example, or going into what is now Poland without any pushback, for example. And really the clincher for me was finding out in Ian Kershaw's amazing book that during the 1930s, again, the folklore of Hitler is he's this raving anti-Semite. Of course, he was a raving anti-Semite. Yeah. But when he's doing those speeches, I know what you were getting at now.
Yes.
When he's doing those speeches, where he's going kind of spitting and getting angry, you imagine he's going on about the Jews, but he wasn't going on about the Jews, because that wasn't playing well with the middle classes in the 1930s. Actually, he was going on about the glorious future of Germany, the Third Reich. I should be careful doing that and talking about that.
Yeah, I'll put that in the thumbnail.
Yeah,
the trailer.
Yeah, and so that's the stuff that was playing well. That's the stuff that people wanted to hear, and that's the stuff that was driving people completely insane and making people obsessed with Hitler. Because not only was he saying, "I'm going to restore our status, bring us back to the top of the tree, and create this glorious 1,000-year Third Reich," he was actually starting to do it. Like the achievements of the Nazi Party through the 1930s are really quite extraordinary. I mean, I think that they went from about a third of the population being unemployed to full employment by the end of the 30s. It might even be more successful than that. I mean, I know lots of people working in the armaments industry preparing for war, but still, again, what matters is the perception. That the perception was that he was really restoring Germany's place in the world. So status really explains to me the rise of Hitler. It really explains to me the rise, the popularity of Hitler and the Nazi Party, because not only did he say he was going to restore Hitler's glory, he was actually doing it. Unlike Donald Trump, who says these things, but he's actually a very effective politician.
Right. The Stasi did that as well. I got full. Everyone had to, because you had to have a job.
Yeah, well, that's communism, isn't it? Everyone has a job, even if there's no actual work to do. They give you a job in inverted commas and give you the pay.
Someone else comes in, more sort of centrist government comes in and got to get rid of all these state work. How do we get them off the bills here? Because they're just what's happening in Argentina at the moment with Milei, who's a nutcase, goes around with a chainsaw. I don't know if you've seen much about it. I lived a long time in Argentina, so my sort of family there, and he's got a chainsaw, like an actual chainsaw, and he runs around. He's going to rip up, because they've been too lefty for quite long, Argentina, and they've got too many people sort of just eating from I was going to say sucking off the state. It's the state, wasn't it?
Yeah,
what do you say?
What's the funny image that?
Yeah. What do you say? What's the metaphor there?
Leeching off the state.
Leeching off the state.
Yeah.
I don't know if we'll include my first. But it's funny just being in Berlin though. I lived in Berlin for a few years after that, and they've got this thing called Nostalgie. Which, the Eastern nostalgia.
Nostalgia for the old East. And
loads of them love it because it was a fully employed time. Women had better benefits and things like that, but they had no individual freedom. So
and the economy couldn't cope with this idea of full employment. I did some reporting for GQ about a while ago, well, a long time ago now, about 15 years ago, when all the Polish people were coming to England, and so they sent me to Poland to find out why they were coming to England. And I had a fixer, a local journalist, and I said to her, it's amazing how hardworking. It was so hardworking the Polish people are. She was like, it's funny you say they were hardworking. The Poles are not hardworking. We are very lazy people. She said, we have a post-Soviet mindset. And I said, what does that mean, a post-Soviet mindset? And she said, well, in the Soviet Union, everybody would have a job. So, but there would and it would be guaranteed work. So you turn up to work and just drink vodka all day and get drunk. And then what would happen is if a young ambitious person came in and started working really hard, they made everyone else look really bad. So they'd get bullied effectively until they started behaving and just started drinking vodka instead. So
wow.
So and she said there was a phrase we used to have where you can turn up for work, or you can stand up or you can lie down. It doesn't matter. You're still going to get paid. I mean, I think it's lost its elegance in translation, but you get the sense of it where it doesn't matter. So I think that's one of the reasons communism failed, or the main reason communism failed, is because it worked against human nature, and human nature is a lot of it's about communion and connection, and that's the stuff the communists had right, like us all coming together and doing this thing together. That's a great human thing, but we also want to be recognized as individuals. We also want individual value and individual status, and that's why communism can never work, because it runs against human nature itself. You have to allow people to play their own status games, to feel individually valuable in the world. We all want that. And it's good that we do want that, because that's the engine of civilization. That's the engine of progress.
Yeah, I think so too. And I liked your Polish accent, which was sort of mid-Atlantic, English American. I believe we'll fight them on the beaches. It was,
I've only got one accent, and you've just,
I thought it was quite good, and it was a shame you abandoned it halfway through, because I was enjoying it. It's the one thing I wish I could do better is accents. I don't know why that is. I just would love to be able to just when people do it, I'm mesmerized. I will sit and watch someone do all the accents.
Yeah.
It's a nice thing, isn't it? On an individual level, I saw you talking on Stephen Bartlett about the myth that anyone can do what they want and be whoever they are. What's that about?
Yeah, so in my book Selfie, I wrote about this, about this myth we have in the West. You know, like I'm a great defender of the West and you know, Western individualism, but there are also downsides to it. And one of the big downsides to it is that we tell ourselves a bit of a lie, and that lie is that you, the individual, can do anything you want to do. You know, it's a very ancient Greek idea. The individual hero coming, fighting monsters and bringing back prizes to the community. You know, it's a very motivating myth. You can see why people want to believe it because it's optimistic. It's promising status. But it's not true, and it's not true because of genes. I mean, you know, we're all limited in certain ways because of our genotype. That's just a fact. You know, it's not that genes are you know, we're not completely fated by our genes, but they set certain limits upon us. There's no way I could ever dance like Beyonce. I mean, or even sing like Beyonce, no matter how much I wanted to. So I think that's the problem with a lot of Western thought, and you see it coming up a lot in the self-help world, the wellness world. This idea that you can do whatever you want to do, you just got to dream big enough. You know, the dark side of that is that when we fail, when most of the time we fail, because most of human life is unfortunately failure. We blame ourselves. Like if my success is down to me and me alone, then my failure is too. So it's a kind of quite a savage ideology, that idea that you can do anything you want to do.
We blame others as well.